You're most likely on the fence about whether deepfakes are a dystopian harbinger or just another media scare. The answer is less about the technology itself, or even the implications of the technology, and more about how we choose to react to it. After all, deepfakes exist now. There's no going back. They're not hypothetical and preventable like a Face-Off remake no one asked for. So the first question is, are deepfakes legal? The short answer is, mostly yes, depressingly so. In terms of the criminalization of non-consensual porn, aka revenge porn, deepfakes don't apply because they technically aren't nude images of the person in question, but rather images doctored to make them look nude. It means that in order to take a deepfake down from a website, you either have to shame that website or file a false light or defamation claim, which puts the burden of proof on the victim and possibly creates a long and expensive legal adventure. Ironically, the people with the power to remove a deepfake are the ones whose face isn't in the video, as the pornography itself could be flagged for copyright violations, assuming the copyright holder even cares. And that's pretty much it for the moment. And that sucks a lot, and it needs to be fixed. But also it needs to be fixed correctly. And this is where we get into a difficult discussion, because even though deepfakes seem like the beginning of an inevitable dystopia, our reaction to deepfakes, as well as our attempts to regulate them, might actually be worse if we're not careful. Because we're talking about a problem that A, brushes very close to the First Amendment, and B, is currently being fast-tracked by multiple terrible proposals in Congress. You know, the place that is filled with very smart people that Americans all super love. Two that come to mind are the Malicious Deepfake Prohibition Act of 2018 and the slightly less jazzy Defending Each and Every Person from False Appearances by Keeping Exploitation Subject to Accountability Act of 2019. You can argue that both of these proposed bills have their heart in the right place, except neither of them introduce anything besides harsher punishments mixed with extremely broad definitions of what deepfakes are. The big idea in the latter act being mandatory watermarks on deepfakes, something that totally solves that problem of online porn harassment and political propaganda, but it can get even worse than simply being broad and ineffective, such as last year's proposed New York State Assembly Bill A08155, which, to quote, provides that an individual's persona is the personal property of the individual and is freely transferable and descendable, and that the use of a digital replica for purposes of trade within an expressive work shall be a violation. Because while that would certainly make deepfakes illegal, it would also technically make every biopic and documentary illegal, unless specifically approved by the holder of the copyright. And by copyright, I mean the existence of a person. This might have something to do with why every film studio came out against the bill. And while you might think, big deal, they can't make The Imitation Game 2, Turing's Revenge. The idea that an individual's persona is a freely transferable property also means that studios could essentially own the image of a person if that person stupidly signed their image over in a moment of financial weakness. In other words, it's the exact dystopia that these laws are supposedly trying to prevent. So yeah, it's f***ing tricky, man! As of right now, we have the technology needed to successfully detect a deepfake. So considering that they aren't completely convincing just yet, figuring out the exact law to stop them feels more important than finding an immediate solution, especially when the root of the problem might not even be deepfakes themselves, and deepfake detection is kind of just another distraction from that. What does this rambunctious news god mean by that? Will we ever crack the enigma of my words? Who do we talk to about putting me in a remake of Face-Off? Two of those three questions will be answered right now. While the primarily dark implications of deepfakes do involve the concepts of porn and misinformation, they actually have little to do with celebrities or politicians, and more to do with social media and the way we consume facts. What I mean is, the sad truth is that we don't need deepfakes to be completely convinced by blatant lies. You know, as evidenced by just turning your head slightly and looking around at the world. After all, the most effective video propaganda of late isn't a deepfake, but rather this doctored speech of Nancy Pelosi, edited to make her seem drunk.
And then he had a press conference in the Rose Garden with all this sort of visuals.
Now the doctored video in which she appears to be impaired.
And then he had a press conference in the Rose Garden with all this sort of visuals.
That was shared and watched thousands, if not millions of times on both Facebook and Twitter. And another doctored version was of course shared by our totally not incoherent president, who certainly isn't projecting his own mental erosion on others. Neither was done using deepfakes, the latter of which actually being a deceptively edited Fox Business segment, clearly designed to hate orgasm tired brains of the most racist and aged viewers. Once again, shared by our president and his tippy-top brain. My point is, even though there's clear video evidence that this speech was doctored, it didn't stop Trump's most feverish fans from sharing it. After all, there is an entire subsection of his supporters who believe he was sent from God to dissolve a secret cabal of satanic pedophiles, based on a series of anonymous 4chan posts. In a country where our highest of leaders are sharing fake grandpa memes on social media, we don't really need deepfakes to trick people into believing propaganda. In fact, the biggest threat of deepfakes aren't the videos themselves, but more likely the introduction of the concept as one more tool for the lexicon of dumb people justifying their shitty beliefs. There's already a giant post in the Donald subreddit about how Hillary and her death squad of satanic Hollywood elites secretly invented deepfakes as an excuse for future video evidence of their guilt. While no doubt future undoctored videos of Trump tripping over words or accidentally supporting genocide or like getting his dick stuck in Air Force One, whatever nightmare comes next, they will be written off by his supporters as deepfakes. Deepfake! They will howl from their foul guts, pointing an accusatory digit at whatever supreme dumb fuckery births from the warbling throat hole of our defective president. Oh, how fun the next election will be. Meanwhile, it's far more likely that actual deepfakes aren't going to affect the powerful and famous nearly as badly as they will affect everyday folks, aka the ones with fewer resources to combat them. Like, if a video came out of James McAvoy f***ing the flared end of a clarinet, he would have a lot of ways to deny that, either by trusting his die-hard fans to know that he would never make love to a woodwind, or, and this would be the more conclusive answer, by publicly having sex with a second clarinet in order to comparatively prove the initial video was fake. Either way, this would surely satisfy his fervent following of what I can only assume are called maniac-avoys. But let's say you're not J-Voy, but rather a journalist trying to hold powerful people accountable. Someone like Raina Ayub, whose recent book accused India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi of being complicit in deadly riots that happened in her country. This reporting has resulted in constant harassment on the internet, including countless threats from people of opposing political parties. And part of that harassment was a very disturbing deepfake video editing Rana into pornography, leading to a massive smear campaign and doxing. When she went to the police, she had to threaten media exposure to even get them to file a report. To this day, the video has not been taken down from the internet, what with the fact that social media doesn't give a big wad of shit about the truth so long as people continue to use their platform. And this is the real problem, the rotten root. Not deepfake specifically, but social media's depressing complicity with bullshit in the interest of increased engagement. That doctored Nancy Pelosi video, for example, Facebook refused to remove it even after it was proven to be fake. After all, there's nothing technically illegal about it, and we just have no way to flag or pull content for simply being propaganda. And when a company like Facebook is called out for their bullshit, they often give an answer like this.
We need to rely on and build sophisticated AI tools that can help us flag certain content. And we're getting good in certain areas. One of the areas that I mentioned earlier was terrorist content, for example, where we now have AI systems that can identify and take down 99% of the Al-Qaeda and ISIS-related content in our system before someone, a human, even flags it to us.
AI will solve everything, you guys. And by solve everything, I mean solve everything specifically for social media companies who don't want to get in trouble. It's an extremely broad concept used to shut up old politicians, and as I already mentioned, is currently what's being proposed for combating deepfakes. Facebook is already telling the world that AI will solve this problem, because much like how adding more armed people will totally solve mass shootings, piling on more algorithms will totally get rid of bullshit on the internet. You know, especially since those detection programs are already becoming outdated to more sophisticated deepfakes. At least